Okay, 3-2, solving two-step equations. There's a couple of steps to do it, and the steps are take care of the plus or minus first. So when you have an equation like this, you don't do anything over here yet. First step is to take care of the plus or minus thing. Then, after that's done, then you can multiply or divide. So, let's take care of the plus or minus thing first. So, we have minus 5. We do the opposite. That's plus 5 to both sides. And now we have 2x equals 18. Now we get to divide or multiply. Since this is multiplying, we do the opposite, which is divide. And we end up with x equals 9. To check it, put 9 back in. Well, 2 times 9 is 18. 18 minus 5 is 13. That's the right answer. Let's do another one. Remember the steps. Plus or minus thing first. Okay, so I've got plus 4. The opposite is minus 4. So I'm going to subtract 4 from both sides. That leaves me 5h equals 15. Now I get to multiply or divide. Well, since 5 and h are already multiplying and I want to do the opposite, I'm going to divide. So h equals 3. To check it, stick it back in there. If h is 3, well, that means 5 times 3 is 15. 15 plus 4 is 19. It checks. Okay, let's try this one. Take care of the plus or minus thing first. So we have minus 9, so we need plus 9. Plus 9, that leaves b over 2 equals 20. Now, b and 2 are dividing, so we're going to multiply both sides, and we're going to multiply by whatever this number is down here. So, I'm going to say times 2 times 2. Okay, put this one over 1, that cancels. That gives me b equals 40. Let's check that to see if it really works. Okay, 40 divided by 2 is 20. 20 minus 9 is 11. That's right. Okay, let's do another one. This one is written down backwards, but that's okay. We can still work it. We're going to take care of the plus or minus thing first. Okay, the plus or minus thing's right there. So what we're going to do is plus 3, plus 3. Well, negative 6 plus 3 is negative 3. And that leaves us z over 4 on this side. Okay, those two things are dividing, so we're going to do the opposite. The opposite is multiply, so times 4 to both sides. Times 4. Okay. 4 times negative 3 is negative 12. That's going to cancel. That leaves z. Z is negative 12. Let's check it. Negative 12 divided by 4 is negative 3. Negative 3 minus 3 is negative 6. It checks. Okay, here's another one. It's a little bit different. We're going to take care of the plus or minus thing first. Minus 4, minus 4. So 6 equals 2/7 times n. Now, when you have a fraction, there's a shortcut. It's fine if you want to go divide by 2/7, divide by 2/7. That works beautifully, but let me show you the shortcut. The shortcut, because, you know, dividing fractions, you flip and multiply. So, go ahead and flip this and multiply both sides by it. Times 7/2, flip it, and times 7/2. Well, The 2's cancel, the 7's cancel, n is still there even though my line went through it. And you have 7 times 6, which is 42, divided by 2, which is 21. Okay? If you wanted to, you could take this and divide it, which means you'd say 6 divided by 2/7. Well, that's the same as going 6 times 7/2. So see, this is a shortcut. Doing it this way is really a shortcut. If you're going to do it like this and use your calculator, that'll work too. You're still going to get n equals 21. Let's check it. 2/7 times 21. Let me switch colors and we'll put the 21 in. 2/7 times 21, because that's what we think n is. Well, 2 times 21 is 42. 42 divided by 7 is 6. 6 plus 4 is 10. It checks. Okay, let's talk about functions. Okay, functions are equations, and they're written in a certain way, and there's some equations that aren't functions. We'll find that out later. Right now, what we need to know about functions is there's an x and a y. Okay, the x is always called the input. Because if I wanted to find out what y was and I knew x, I could put that number in there and I could do the math and I could get y. So therefore y is called the output. X is always the input. Y is always the output. Now, you've seen this before back when we did input-output tables. Last year in pre-algebra, we did input-output tables. We call them that, but we always wrote x here and y there. Remember, x was always the input, y was always the output. So you've seen this before, you've just forgotten it. Okay, keep that in mind. X is input, y is output. Now, you're going to have some problems, and they're going to start out like this. The output of a function is 7 more than 3 times the input. Okay, first of all, we know what output is. What did I tell you output was? Output is always y. So that's y. Okay, think of that as y. And input, I told you, is always x. Now let's think what this says. Okay, let's get rid of some words we don't need. We don't need the. We don't need of a function. We need is, because is means equals. And we need 7 more than 3 times x, because remember, input is x. So, what we really have here is y is 7 more than 3 times x. See how when I get rid of the unnecessary words and remember that y is output and x is input, I can shorten it down to that? Now, how do you write that in math, words to math? Well, that looks like y equals 7 more is plus 7. So put plus 7. And 3 times x is 3x. See? Y equals 7 more than 3 times x. Now, that's the first part of this problem. First, you've got to figure out exactly what the equation looks like that goes with this. It's always going to use the word output, always going to use the word input. So you have to realize output is y and input is x. Get rid of some words you don't need and figure out an equation from it. Now, that's part 1. Okay, now I've added the second part of this question. Remember the original question, the output of a function, output is y, is 7 more than 3 times the input, input is x, and we decided the equation was y equals 3x plus 7. Now, the second part of this says find the input. What's input? X. Find X when the output, what's output? Y is -8. So, what they're telling you here is put -8 in Y's place and then solve it and find out what X is. So you would put -8 in Y's spot and write the rest down, and then you would solve it and check it just like normal, because every time you're solving an equation, you're trying to find X. Okay? Then you would solve it. Okay, so now let's solve for X. So, -7, plain number first, -7. -15 equals 3x. Divide by 3, divide by 3. X equals -5. That's the answer to that question. Now, here's an equation, but there's something different. Can you see what's different from this equation from the ones we've already had before? If you're saying, wait, there's 2 y's, you're right. If you're saying, oh, Miss Stephan, those are like terms, you're right. Because all of a sudden now, we have 2 terms that are alike. So we need to add a step into our steps. Remember, our steps will take care of the plus or minus thing, multiply and divide. Really, there's a step ahead of them, but this is the first time we've encountered it. The step ahead of them says simplify each side. So that means I'm going to look at this side when I have an equation and say, hey, is there anything that needs to be done over here? Do I need to add like terms? Do I need to use the distributive property? Is there anything I need to do first before I start solving? And in this case, yes, I need to do something first. I need to add them. They're like terms. So that makes me have 11y equals 44. Now, the second step is still take care of the plus or minus thing. Whatever's adding or subtracting. But there's nothing adding and subtracting in this one, so we can skip that step. And then step 3 is still divide or multiply. Okay, in this case, we're going to divide because 11 and y are multiplying. Divide by 11, we get y equals 4. It's pretty easy to check this. What's 8 times 4? 8 times 4 is 32. What's 3 times 4? 12. What's 32 plus 12? 44. Checks beautifully. Here's the first page of video homework. Notice it says solve and show work. Solve and show work. Showing work is not optional. Show work, please. Remember, output and input mean different things. Go back and look at the example and try to help yourself. You can do this. Have a great night.